Welcome, everybody, to the DadBodd podcast, episode number 96. I am yours truly, the man with the plan, the host with the most guns picks, and I'm running a little bit solo for at least the time being. Don't worry, we have guys coming in. Lock bets will be in shortly, as well as our special guest from the Hustle podcast at CTBet16 on Twitter. You know him as Chris Thurston. You know him as on every single show all the way up the East Coast. He'll be here shortly. But I want to get into a little bit of college football. I want to get into a little bit of NFL. I want to be talking to you, the people. This is basically what I call the lean show. What I mean by the lean show is I want to talk any games that I'm seeing right now as I'm starting to cap this stuff. I've already capped a few games. I've locked some games that I'm not going to give out until we get to the Saturday slate on the Friday show with Mr. Shark in Waters Nation. But I will actually, I do have one play that I'll give out here in a little bit for the Friday games. But man, we're getting into the heat of the season with college football. We're getting into conference play. I know a lot of teams have, there's a few teams that have played a conference game or two. But I think this is where the precipice of conference football starts. So you have the data, you have the stats, you have how they played last year, the year before, that stuff. It's all part of the cap. I can show you a little bit of how I look at these games. So as we get into it, let's talk about the Friday slate. And I want to go right down the line with college football here. So when I'm looking at the Friday slate, a couple of games that stick out to me. One in particular is you got Tulane and you got Houston. So when you look at Tulane is coming. They played a tough loss against Southern Miss last week, but you had to expect that, especially with the performance that they did against Kansas State the week before. Kansas State was obviously in another look-ahead spot, 14.5-point dogs. They win outright. Now you have them in a spot where they're playing a Houston team that just seems to me, doesn't matter what position they're in, whether it's win, lose, or draw, the team is in shambles. I mean, this team is absolutely terrible right now. I think Hogerson is got one foot out the door. I don't think he has any belief in his team. You have a defense that is extremely banged up. Most of them aren't going to be playing in the Tulane game. And then you have a hungry-ass Tulane game that is on the rise. I mean, this team is hungry as hell. All the way up through, this team only won 2 games last year. But they played a lot of close games. They played a lot of competitive games down the stretch. They just couldn't pull out victories. Now you're starting to see this team pull out victories in non-conference play. I think this is kind of leak into conference play, and this is definitely a Tulane team you want to be playing on. Now you have Houston coming off a close win actually to Rice, which is, Rice is a terrible team, 37-27 as 17.5-point favorites. They can't cover for nothing. They only had a +3 net yard average for that game. And then you have the Houston defense, which used to be their staple. It used to be like everything that made them good. Now you see them sitting here struggling. They gave up 443 yards of total offense to their opponents, 61.7% pass completion rate, and a whopping 4.2 yards per carry. What made them great was they could stop the run and they could hold opponents on the defensive side, and the offense kind of produced from there. Now you're seeing this Houston team struggle. It's not a play on team here. You see Tulane on a short line, +2.5. Tulane has covered 7 out of the last 9 games dating back to 2021, October 2021, and they've covered 7 straight as a dog. So that's kind of like what I'm circling here. Then you got Houston 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 games alone, 1-3 this season. I think this is a play on Tulane, in my opinion. And I got it at +3. I think it's sitting at +2.5, some books right now. So it's kind of steaming down. I would grab it now if you're watching right now. I really like Willie Fritz, and I think Dana Hogerson may be packing a couple boxes in his office sometime this season, the way that the ADs are firing coaches right now. So you got to go with the Tulane Green Wave. I think they're the Green Wave. +3. If you can get them at +3, +2.5. I like a money line too, to be honest with you. And that is a Friday game, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to do a quick ad read. Our guest is sitting in the queue, and we'll get the show on the road with Mr. CT Betts. This podcast is sponsored by Viva Tequila Seltzers. That's right. This podcast is sponsored by Viva Tequila Seltzers. Viva Tequila Seltzers is a refreshing and drinkable hard seltzer, 88 calories, 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and 4.5 ABV. Viva is the perfect drink for your post-game celebrations, as it was created for the active lifestyle in mind. Viva flavors their tequila seltzers because flavor is the spice of life, and they like their drinks with a little bit of a kick, just like they like to live their lives. Viva flavors perfectly with their artisanal Blanco tequila for a subtle and refreshing drinks. Their belief is to live long, live well, and live it up. Hashtag Viva Up. And make sure you check them out on Twitter at Viva Seltzers. Now it's time for our guest, and make sure I got to intro him properly. This guy's been on the show. I think it's his third time on the show. The man is a Baylor alum, sports betting analyst for SportsMap Radio. He's on the Die Hards radio show, and you can also find him on the Hustle podcast on Wager Talk with Drew Martin, Kelly in Vegas, Adam Trigger, and Ariel Epstein. Give it up for the third time on the DadBodd podcast, Chris Thurston. What's up, my friend?
Guns, what's up, my brother? Long time no talk, no see. Man, I missed you, and I got a little upset today when I went to text you. We hadn't really talked one-on-one since college hoops season.
I know.
So we got to get that back and going, and glad to be here, man. I love the ad there for Viva. That was really cool. I love it. And, man, I was sitting backstage for a couple minutes. I played Tulane as well. I like Willie Fritz this weekend, as I grabbed the 3 points as well. And I think they're live this weekend. So we're off to a good start here.
Yeah, I think with college teams, I always look at them as like stocks. It's like, what's their value right now? So like Houston is like a sell. They're like just dropping. And then you got Tulane, that is one of those teams that, like, if you ever look at their stats from 2021, they always competed. They just couldn't get over the hump.
Big time.
But this is a team now that you're like, oh, now you're seeing them go on the road and beating a Kansas State team. It's like, and obviously they fall flat against Southern Miss, which that tells me, I'm like, okay, now it's a play on team going into conference play. So that's how I look at these games.
Yep, I'm thinking the same thing. We are great minds think alike there. So. Same page.
Yeah, before we get into picks and everything, I know we only get you for a limited time here. I have to talk about this because I was listening to The Hustle. I was actually going to a golf scramble, and I was listening to it Thursday morning or something like that. And you were telling this story about like, oh yeah, I got to play golf in this scramble. Do you want to tell that story? Because you actually played with some guys that hit. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'd lose my shit if I played with these guys.
Yeah, sure. It was pretty cool. So my brother is the owner of Viva Tequila Seltzer, which is the sponsor of this awesome show. Yep. And he invited me to play with himself and 2 accounts in this celebrity golf tournament in Boston, Massachusetts. This was a couple Mondays ago. And it's Sean McDonough's golf tournament from ESPN. And he does a great job with it. So you put a foursome in, and then you get a celebrity to play with you. So you're playing a 5-some, and it's a five-man scramble. So we really lucked out. We got one of the Farley brothers. We got Bobby Farley, who is from Boston, which I had no idea. He's from Hingham, Massachusetts. And man, we never laughed so hard in our entire lives. What a great guy. And if you're listening and you don't know who the Farley brothers is, it's Bobby and Peter Farley, and they are the directors of the gems like There's Something About Mary, Dumb and Dumber, a bunch of other great ones. And they're Boston guys. They're totally hilarious.
Kingpin is another one. Too.
Yep, Kingpins.
Yep.
What's the Fenway movie?
Oh, Fever Pitch.
Fever Pitch.
Yep.
Dumb and Dumber 2.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just absolutely classic. Had us laughing the entire time. So we're on the golf course. On like number 3 or 4, he's walking up in the distance with my brother, and I'm back with a couple of caddies. And when we met, he said to me, he's like, you look really familiar. Have we ever met before? And I'm like, no, I would definitely remember if we ever met before, Bobby. You're a legend. I really admire all your work. So he's like, I can't remember. He's like, I can't recall. He's like, it just seems like we met. Anyways, go on to like the 3rd or 4th hole. And I hear my brother saying, oh my God, Bobby, I wish you never told me that. He's never going to let me live this down. And so he screams to me and he goes, holy shit, you're CT Betts. I knew you. Like, I watch The Hustle every single week with you, Kelly, Drew Martin Betts, Adam Trigger, and your show's awesome. Your picks have been great. So it was pretty cool. I mean, I have the utmost respect for him, love all his stuff. And, he recognized me and knew who I was. And we had such a good time. So it was a pretty cool moment.
That's like, all I thought about it is like, he's not saying outside Providence is like, that was my, like when I was in college, that was the movie I watched like a 1,000 times. And I think they produced it and directed it.
I think so. Yeah.
But if there's a movie that, cause it's funny, cause you put up a picture with Richard Jenkins and people know him as like the father from Step Brothers.
Yep.
But me personally, I know him. He was the father in Say It Isn't So, which is another Farley Brothers produced movie, which is by far I don't even think you can make movies like this anymore. The premise of the movie was basically incest.
Oh, Jesus, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so it was a mistake in the way the premise worked is like these two started dating, which was Heather Graham and Chris Klein. Chris Klein was in the American Pie movies. Yep. And that he was like, it was 2001, so it was like peak him. Like that's what, like they put him in as like as much stuff as possible, and he ended up like dating her, and they slept together, and then there was a mix up with the I think they thought he was adopted. It turned out he wasn't adopted. He was actually the girl's sister. That was his sister.
Oh,
but it was like a whole like mistaken thing. Sally Field was a bad mom, and then found out it wasn't true that they were related. So she tried to keep him away and the secret away. But Richard Jenkins was like, he had a stroke and he was in a wheelchair, and every line that came out of his mouth was pure gold. And I wish I could say all the lines, but my favorite one is like, I'm surprised like he found out that they had sex or whatever, and he goes, I'm surprised she didn't give up the sausage and become a vaginitarian, which is
amazing.
But he had a stroke, so he's talking like he has a stroke. So it was just unbelievably so funny, underrated movie, and I think it just fell through the cracks of comedy in 2001. I don't know why people hadn't seen it.
That's awesome. Yeah, we got to meet him the night before. They had like a celebrity dinner and cocktail party. He was there. Tuukka Rask, Ray Bork. A bunch of Boston legends, Tim Wakefield. So Jim Rice, he was there. And then they had a few other local celebrities, actresses, and actors. So it was a really good time and pretty cool moment, when Bobby knew who I was.
Nice. Well, yeah, it's good to see. I wish I could just catch up with you like all freaking night, man. But I mean, looking at how you doing with like college? How's the show going on Wager Talk with the Hustle? Like now you're back into it. Does it feel back to normal yet? Or are you still trying to get back into rhythm?
No, it's took week 0. Surprisingly, I cleaned up, did great. And week 1 and week 2 was a little rocky in college for me. The last 2 weeks have been not been knock on wood, really good. And NFL has been pretty good all year long here. So looking to, I've hit my last 3 best bets on the Hustle, and going for number 4 this week. So NFL has been pretty kind to me. I got a few NFL picks and a few college. So we could dive right in, and if there's a game you wanted to talk, I could pretty much do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I've already locked in probably 4 or 5. I usually save. I already gave out the Tulane one. I'm not afraid to give out more here. If we're talking about a game that I'm on as well.
Okay.
Is there anything that I mean, is it something that you're looking at for Friday? Is there any or Thursday, or is there anything that catches your eye on that one? I mean, we
Yeah,
have.
I got a game on Friday that I am playing that I've already played, and I'll give out on Friday. I don't know, tomorrow. What's that? Yeah, Friday. I usually give my college picks on Saturday, but I'll give them out on Friday. And I'll get right into it. I'm looking at the UCLA Bruins. I played the Bruins +3
Mhm.
and versus the number 15 Washington Huskies. And not sure if you know this, Guns, but this is the first time that those little Huskies have had to leave home all year long.
Yes, it is.
They start off 4-0, right?
That's correct.
They have wins against Sparty, who clearly were overrated this year, and went over the Stanford Cardinals, a team who hasn't covered a game in almost a year. Don't get me wrong. The transfer of Michael Penix Jr. from IU has been great. He's been a good fit for this Huskies team. But I think the offensive coordinator, Bill McGoverns for the Bruins, will have some good stuff scheme for him and throw some curveballs at him. And on the other end of the ball, DTR, he's been responsible for 40 touchdowns since the start of last year. And he even missed a few games last year. So I give the coaching advantage to good old Chip Kelly here, and I'll take the points at home. I won't be surprised at all to see UCLA win on the field. Chip's won 7 straight. So he has won 7 in a row since last year, late last year, and those 7 been 6-1 against the spread. So I played on the UCLA Bruins +3 here, Guns.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where the sharp angle's going as well. I when I was looking at this game, I try to compare both, and they're so like the same. I think Washington's played a little bit more tougher competition per se.
Sure.
I wouldn't
I would
really
agree.
call it the toughest of tough, but I mean we're talking like P5 versus G5. I didn't like watching UCLA struggle against South Alabama. I think that was kind of a bad spot for
Yep.
them. But they've dominated nonetheless. But they what I said, they just haven't played anyone. Mike Penix getting reunited with I think the head coach Dorr. He was there at IU in Penix's first year in 2020 when he had that immaculate season. And then he left, went to Fresno State, dominated over there, goes to Washington, brings Penix over, and then it's like he's back to 2020 self. The other situation is looking at the line from last year, 1.5-point favorites last year. Washington
UCLA beat
lost
them on the field,
24-17 or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a revenge factor in there.
Sure.
And then you have this Washington team that played so bad last year. Now they're coming up on the rise. I don't know if it's this game that's going to be their bad. It could go either way. If I could see both arguments. It's not a game that I'm officially on. But when I was looking at this game, I was like, well, why are you now? It's like you're -1.5 at home. Now you're -3 on the road. It's like, so is there something that the bookmakers are telling me? I know it seems like the public's, all over Washington anyway. So maybe, who knows? It's kind of one of those ones that I'm like, I don't know if I trust. I want to see UCLA play like one or two good teams to see where they're going to be. I don't think UCLA is a bad team. They're obviously a great team. DTR's playing. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And same thing with the offense. So that's kind of where I'm at in my head. And I really wanted to take UCLA too. And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I just think it's a good spot for the Bruins here.
Yep.
It's, the late night, and as my co-host Drew Martin Betts would say, it's the late night degenerate special here.
It really is.
On the East Coast. And I make this game UCLA -1.
Yep.
So I think in my head, my numbers, I'm getting this is an advantage here. I'm getting 3 points when I think I should be laying 1. So it's a play on for me.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So going into I've got 11 pages of notes on Saturday on stuff. I started capping Monday and locking stuff in. What catches your eye on? We already talked about Tulane. We talked about Washington. What catches your eye on Saturday?
Saturday. So I'll go to one of the primetime games. It's NC State at Clemson. Clemson laying 6.5 at home here. And I like Clemson here in this spot. This is we just talked a little bit revenge, and this is revenge in the other way here. Last year, NC State was a 10.5-point home dog. They knocked off the Tigers 27-21, and Dabo's had this game marked on his calendar for a year straight. You could count on that. He can't wait to play this. Don't get me wrong. NC State has done great stuff. And I love what Doran has done with this team. But, I mean, I was going through their schedule so far this year. NC State 4-0. They almost lost to ECU first game of the year, 21-20. They scraped that one out. They beat Charleston Southern. I'll give them – that's a nice win versus Texas Tech. And then they play UConn, who's getting blown out by everyone. Mm-hmm. We saw what DJ did last weekend versus Wake Forest, and that was the most complete game I think we've seen him play, probably since that loss where he had to come in for Trevor Lawrence when they ended up losing to Notre Dame in overtime. A lot of people at the beginning of the year when DJ was struggling in that first game versus Georgia Tech, I believe it was, in the first half there, it took him a little while to get going. I'm high on this Clemson team. I bet them over 10 wins this year. I thought that was a great number and a nice little discount. I thought it should have been 10.5, 11. And I think they're going to be ready to go here. The defense did get a little exposed last weekend versus Wake and Sam Hartman. I think Dabo will be able to make some adjustments here. Obviously, we know there's a new OC and a new DC in Clemson this year. So they're still getting some, some kinks out. I think this is a good spot for the Tigers here. I played the Tigers minus in 6.5 guns.
Yeah, I think we're aligned on that one. You got to look at, if you actually remember that game, because I remember having NC State last year. Key injuries happened to that game. They lost like 2 guys on the defensive line. They were very banged up, and they were kind of like lost after losing. I think Brian Breezy comes from actually right up the road. He went to high school up here, and then there was another defensive lineman that got lost in that game. So their depth really got killed. If you watch the Wake Forest game and the Clemson game, I heard there was missing some of the secondary in that game for Clemson that will be back in this game. I need to look back into that a little bit further because I didn't watch that game last week, so I have to go and check into that. But I think that might have been the problem when playing Wake Forest and not stopping Sam Hartman. Electric offense too, by the way. I think you get the bounce back. The line is at -7, -6.5. I think it's is one of those situations where I think people are still a little bit low on Clemson, and you still have that bye. And you saw what DJ did again, when his back was against the wall. You saw the offense starting to click. Seems like the offense is getting a little bit more confident with him. And Will Shipley should have an electric game as well. I think this is going to be one of those Clemson standout games that you're going to remember as they're pushing towards the college football playoff once again. I'm high on the defense. I think the offense is progressing. I'm with you on this one. I think it's Clemson or pass for sure.
I can't remember the last time, Guns, that Clemson lost the game at home. Actually, no. we should look that up, and it's been a long time. And did you see Dabo? I forget who they're playing a couple weeks ago, sprinting down when they come out.
I did down the hill,
1,000 miles an hour. So I'm excited to see how fast he's going to be coming down this Saturday night.
I just worry he's going to have one of those moments. He's going to trip and he's going to fall flat on his face. And it's going to be one of those moments. It's going to be clipped.
Yeah.
It's going to be all over Twitter. And every time he has like a loss or something like that, it's just Dabo falling on his ass.
Right. Well, that's a game I've had have circled for a while here. So I think that's a good spot for the Tigers there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Man, NFL. I know I've been cooking at the NFL. I've had a pretty good season so far. And of course, you saying you're hitting all your best bets. I mean, what catches your eye in the NFL? Anything for Thursday? Are we talking anything for Sunday?
So before we get to the NFL, I had one more.
Okay.
One more college pick. If you
absolutely.
I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
Sure.
I played the Iowa Hawkeyes. I know it sounds crazy. I played them +11. This is a team where I could be wrong. The Iowa State game scared me a little bit. I knew the offense was going to be shaky this year, but I thought Spencer Petras would be better.
Right.
We've seen him be better the last 2 games. Granted, They played Rutgers and Nevada, I believe, were their last two.
Yep.
Yep. And so, I mean, they started getting into the end zone a little bit, but this is another defense that is absolutely elite. They're giving up, I think, an average of 3.5 points a game. That number could be a little bit wrong, but it's right around 3 or 4. And I think that they get they catch Michigan on a little bit of they had a little scare last weekend versus Maryland, right? Michigan's 4-0, but everybody's talking about Michigan. Oh, Michigan's as good as they were last year. They play a couple of cupcakes, Colorado State, Hawaii, they smash UConn like everybody else. And then they're at home at the Big House last weekend versus Maryland. Game comes down to the fourth quarter, and they ended up squeaking out. They won by a touchdown, but Maryland stuck with them to his brother the entire game. I just think Kirk Ferentz at home with that D, I think that rivalry is just too many points. And I think that Iowa's actually live in this game. They might get a couple turnovers, and then they'll be able to punch the ball in, and that defense will keep them in the game, Gun. So I played Iowa Hawkeyes plus 11 here.
I'll just say it now. It's going to be an official play on Friday. I'm actually going to say Iowa play. I got them at plus 11. And so you like what you just said. It's with this Michigan team. By the way, this is their first true road game of the season. So they played 4 straight home games. First road game, they have to go to Kinnick. Right. And from what I'm told, people that have been in that stadium and watched them play, he says it is stupid loud there. It's very loud. They keep, for some reason, how it's contained with like whether the sound stays in from the hospital or that's very close by or the high seating. It's very loud in there. And this is kind of one of those circle games for Iowa. They got crushed last year in the Big Ten championship, a game that they probably didn't deserve to be in. They lost 41-13.
Yeah,
it was 14-3 at halftime, 21-3 going into the fourth quarter, and they gave up 3 straight scores after that. So it was kind of one of those games that it was still close. Iowa couldn't score. It was a Michigan team that was so much better and just had their ticket already punched at that point going into that game because it wasn't supposed to be Iowa in that game. It was supposed to be Wisconsin that lost the last game of the season getting upset, which would have been a better matchup in the Big Ten championship.
It was Guns. I just looked it up. It was 42-3.
3. That okay. Yeah. I thought they scored a touchdown at the end.
I forgot about that slacking until you just said it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the path was 14-3, 21-3, 21-3 in the fourth, and then the last 3 possessions touchdowns. So that's pretty much how it ended. And also Iowa was very banged up in that game. They had a lot of people lost on the defensive side. They got all those guys back, especially Moss, who is an absolute electric safety for them. And this team is built defensively. The question is, can Iowa put up any sort of points on Michigan, control the ball, get it down the field and get points? And with the defense that they have now, and you saw it against Maryland, you can score in this Michigan defense. The defensive line is a little bit weaker than it used to be. You have a good Iowa offensive line. Just get the ball down the field. I know you don't have any receivers. Throw a pass to your tight end. Run the ball.
Tight end's great.
Yeah, do what you can. Do the dink and dunks. Get down the field and just progress. Keep the ball in your offense's hands, and the defense will do their job. Plus 11 seems high. 11 seems too high for me for a home team. I'll take the home dog here. Everyone's high on Michigan, sell team, and they've played nobody. And I think this is one of those spots that you can really catch Michigan sleeping. Iowa's the play.
Yeah, Gun. Sure. Before we move on to the next one, I'll leave everybody with this little stat here. The Wolverines are 0-5-1 against the spread in their last 6 as a road favorite against Iowa, and they have not won a game in Kinnick Stadium since 2005.
Beautiful.
So I mean, take that for what it's worth. I think that's too many points. Play on the Iowa Hawkeyes.
It's a tough place to play. Just need that offense, and that off. I mean, they've scored points in the last 2 games. Granted, Nevada is a nobody team. They're a high school team. Rutgers, I thought the offense struggled, but I think the defense score like 2 touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those situations that I'm putting the faith into Iowa to keep it close, and hopefully the offense can get down the field, get points. But
The D
yeah,
will.
that's the spot.
Yep, it is the
Yep.
spot for sure.
Oh yeah. Anything else you see on the board? You want to get into some NFL?
Yeah, let's yeah, that was enough college there.
Yeah.
Let's I got two games in the NFL that I've played that I like quite a bit here.
All right. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do some NFL. Is it we talking Thursday? We talking Sunday plays?
I mean, I guess we could touch on tomorrow real quick.
Yep.
I think it's a good spot for the Bengals. I do. I laid 4, kind of late. Not really a bad number. I was just too slow on the trigger on Sunday when it came out. I mean, that stayed at 2.5 for a hot second, and I didn't get a 3 or a 3.5. But so I think Tua is going to play. I don't know if if the line's going to come back to 3.5 or 3. Who knows? But the Dolphins are kind of banged up right now, and I just think it's the best spot of the year so far for the Bengals, right? I mean, they've kind of shit the bed so far since being the runner up in the Super Bowl. Came to life a little bit last week. Everybody's riding high on this Dolphins team. I gotta say, tip my cap to him. He's been great, but what is he doing? I mean, he has Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill where he could just dump the ball off to, and they run 1,000 miles an hour on a little slant. So I think the Bengals D will be able to give who's ever taken the snaps, whether it's Tua or Bridgewater, some problems here. And I think this is the spot, right, where the Dolphins, they beat the Pats week 1. They beat the Ravens week 2 in that insane comeback. And then last week they beat who a lot of people think are going to be the Super Bowl champs, the Bills. This is the NFL, as you know, Guns. And I don't think we're going to see this Miami Dolphins team get off to a 4-0 start here. So I played on the Bengals -4 here.
We're on the same page. I got 3.5 on Monday.
Okay.
So that's pretty much where the line was sitting. It got bought up really quick. But one of the concerns that I had was on the Cincinnati offensive line, and I had to go look to see how they did against the Jets, because they did what they were supposed to do against the Jets off a bounce back against Dallas, and they only gave up. If they have a 12% sack rate that they gave up 7 sacks to Pittsburgh, good defense. Dallas, they gave up 6 sacks, good defense, and then you have the Jets, they only gave up 2. So there may be some progression, especially when you had like 2 or 3 guys to the offensive line. So maybe those growing pains are kind of coming out. And then you have a Miami team that is kind of just average as far as sacking the quarterback and putting pressure on the quarterback. They only have a 4.9% sack rate. So that kind of gives me a little bit of hope that, like, okay, that is their worst problem. Sure. Now let's see if Joe Burrow, he's playing at home on a short week, gets a Miami team that is coming off a dramatic win, which came down to the last possession against the Buffalo Bills, the perennial Super Bowl favorite. I think they're playing on the highs of highs, short week. They're banged up. This is a place they don't want to be in right now on the road. So it's definitely one of those spots that you have to be riding with Cincinnati or bust, especially put this in perspective. Watch what Cincinnati did against Dallas in the second half of that game. It's like they played a terrible first half, and then they controlled the second half. They carried that over into next week, go on the road to the Jets. They dominate the Jets. I mean, granted, they dominate the Jets, but whatever, take it for what what it's worth. Carry that over into a circle game. Oh, Miami's 3-0. Okay, let's see how good you are. Joe Burrow. I'll take Joe Cool all day long. I mean, it's time for them to have a breakout game. I think Cincinnati's the play on this one. I think people are going to be jumping on a public dog here with Miami, and I don't like those. Public dogs have fleas.
Yep. I like that line. They absolutely do. Yeah, I agree. We are aligned there.
Yeah. Anything on the Sunday slate?
Yeah, I'll give out 2 here.
Okay.
I gave these both out on the hustle tonight. These are the 2 NFL games that I like the most, and we'll go to 4:05 Eastern, and that's Arizona at Carolina. And I like the short road favorite here. I like the Panthers here. I bet them -1. They both come in at the same 1-2 record, but Arizona would be the league's lone winless team had it not been for that insane, dramatic comeback a couple weeks ago. They raced that 20-0 halftime deficit. Now it sits the Raiders are the lone 0-3 NFL team. The Cardinals, they've been dominated, man, for the better part of the 5 of 6 halves they played this season, losing home games against the Chiefs. That was a blowout. Then last week they played with the Rams for a little while, the defending champs. But Kyler Murray, he can't get into the end zone right now. He led the team. They have 4 field goals. They can't punch it in. James Conner, he looks healthy despite his ankle injury, but he's averaging just 3 yards a carry. DeAndre Hopkins and Rondale Moore, they're still out. And you get, on the other hand, the other side of the ball, the Panthers, Christian McCaffrey, back-to-back 100-yard games, and Baker Mayfield, he looks pretty good. He hasn't been picked off in back-to-back games. And I think given how limited Arizona's offense has looked without, their pair of top receivers, I like Matt Rule and the Panthers and their D to take advantage of this weak Cardinal offense team and get the job done. Play on the short favorite, Panthers -1.
I like that play too. I mean, I'm not gonna put any money on the Cardinals.
Yeah,
maybe if DeAndre Hopkins comes back and they get a little bit healthy in the wide receiver core. But I mean, Kyler Murray, I don't know if he knows how to read a playbook.
I don't, wild, man. Right?
I think he plays sandlot ball like Manziel used to, and you can't do that in the NFL. So, I mean, when you have to put something in your contract that you have to stay in a film room for an X amount of hours a week, I mean, that's a problem. I mean, if you're an NFL quarterback, you should spend most of your time in there.
Yeah.
And that's where you learn week to week of who, like scouting out and reading defenses and the cadences and everything, all the movements they do. I mean, that's why Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning, those guys aren't the most athletic guys. They just know how to read a defense, and they'll give you the ball in the right spots.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Kyler's too busy, battling with the media instead of, being in the film room and studying the playbook. So
exactly. Yeah, I like that spot. Yeah, all I got is leans in the NFL. The one lean that I thought was the Sunday game with the Chiefs, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it.
Okay,
Chiefs on a bounce back. I just don't like what I think Tampa's offense is completely in shambles. Tom Brady's head's not in the game, or maybe his team just isn't with him at all. I think there's just some severe problems. I think the defense is fine. But I would rather take a Pat Mahomes off a loss, a bad loss for that matter, in weird fashion. A lot of referee bad calls down the stretch that kind of like affected that game. I'm sure he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. It's primetime game, maybe a little bit public, but I mean, you got a short line with KC. I like them.
All right, Guns. Well, this is the first time this show where we are not aligned. This is my best bet of the week here, and it happens to be on the Sunday night football game, which is KC at Tampa Bay, hopefully at Raymond James Stadium. Thoughts and prayers out to everybody down in Florida and in the Tampa area.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're going to be – they may play it in New Orleans, I was hearing, if the weather was going to be that bad, but I don't know if that's the case or not.
Yeah, the last I heard was like an hour ago before we went on and did this show that it wasn't going to hit Tampa as bad as they thought.
Okay.
Tampa did evacuate. I think they're down in Miami right now. But they said that they're absolutely playing the game on Sunday night. They just don't know where. But this is a game. I'm on the Bucks here. I played the Bucks +2. The last time these two teams met was actually at Raymond James Stadium, and that was
the Super Bowl
2021 when Brady threw for 3 touchdown passes. Mahomes threw no TDs and 2 picks, and we saw Tampa Bay win another Super Bowl. Tom Brady win another Super Bowl.
That's right.
But I don't disagree with you. Last week, Brady puts together a nice touchdown drive at the end of the game. They failed to tie the game with the 2-point conversion. But let's be honest here. Brady was without its top receivers, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin. They have some offensive line injuries. I think they're going to get some of those guys back on the offensive line. But with all that, they fail, a 2-point conversion. And at the end of regulation, lose 14-12 to a pretty good. I'm high on the Packers this year, even though they didn't look great week one. On the other hand, Kansas City coming off a loss at Indy. How about that back and forth drawing with offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy and Mahomes coming off the field at halftime last week? Second half didn't go too well after that. Chiefs were just held to 3 points. And I think there's some big time problems down in there in Kansas City. I think they should have lost that game a couple weeks ago, Thursday Night Football. If it wasn't for that pick six to save the game, the Chargers were going to win that game. I trust Brady and the Bucs to bounce back here more than I trust Mahomes. Tampa 5-2 against the points after a straight up loss, while KC hasn't been good off the loss here. They're 2-4 versus the points their last 6. Brady will get some of his key weapons back this week. I like backing Brady as a puppy, so I played on Tampa Bay +2.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't lock it in yet. So it's just a win.
Hey, I mean, I don't.
I've changed my mind before. When it's official, I'll lock it in as official, and that will be on Sunday. Yeah, the slate's been. I started 18-6, and then I had my. Nice. I think I went 3-3 last week, so maybe 3-4 because the Monday night game I think I missed out on too. So, okay. But still. Profit is profit and college is cooking. So I mean, yeah, good to hear you guys are doing on the show. I mean, how's the radio show going?
Radio's been great. It's Tuesday nights, Sports Map Radio, Diehard's radio show. It's 8 to 10 p.m. I do it with Dan Lifshatz from 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston and Julian Edlow from DraftKings. So it's a pretty good show. 2-hour show, and it's an all gambling show. We have some pretty good guests on there. Brad Powers from Covers, Kenny White from CBS Sportsline, I almost just said Kenny Powers, KennyWhite.com. So we have
bringing in the closer.
Yeah, I did. Dan Lifshatz, our host, did that last night, and now he got that in my head. And our producer was like, "Kenny Powers is coming on, not Kenny White." So that was kind of the running joke there, but. The show's good. Check it out, sportsmapradio.com. And we're also on 75 FM and AM radio stations throughout the country, giving out some winners once a week, every Tuesday night.
Beautiful. Well, man, you gave a ton of insight into the college football slate, gave a bunch of picks. You actually made me have to give a bunch of picks, too, because I had to go tit for tat with you. But I appreciate you joining me today. It looks like Lockbats was supposed to come on. I think
I was excited to see Lock. What happened?
He's got some – what I'm trying to think how to word it. So he had some issue. Well, he just bought a house in Philly. So he's dealing with a renovation. He's dealing with some job movement as well. And he got some heat on Saturday from the missus, as it always happens to us. But nothing too serious. I understand. And he said, he goes, I'm going to put CT's coming on. He's like, I'll be there. He's like, oh, come on. So, I mean, Locks deals with his biz, and he'll be back next time on the show.
Okay.
We got you today a lot earlier than we expected, and I didn't have to go solo. Thank frickin' God. But I appreciate you coming on tonight on the DadBodd podcast, episode number 96. Till next time for episode number 97. Peace.